the veil between reality and imagining is so extraordinarily thin, and is made even thinner by the embodied practice of like moving through space and imagining things. Hello, long time no talk. Today is Friday, June 12th, and I'm about to head out of the house for my last class in this very short, condensed acting class that I've been taking this week, which is on the Michael Chekhov acting technique. But what I want to talk about in this video is my experience of the class, but also how acting and theater have changed the way that I think about possibility and imagination, because I think they're sort of like the two of the most powerful things I've encountered when it comes to sort of stretching your mind to like the sort of like outer limits of what is possible, and bringing that scope of possibility forward and forward and forward, and just really like recognizing just how powerful our imaginations are and how powerful the embodied experience of imagining something can be. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about that a little bit more later, but now I'm heading out to go do my last class. Bye. Okay, hello. I'm currently at my parents' house. It's a little over a week since I last spoke to you. In the meantime, though, since I filmed that last clip, I turned 30, which was interesting. I don't know if it was interesting. I turned 30, and that was that. I spent my birthday here at home with my family, and I'm really glad that that's what I did. I don't know. I think it's just, I don't know if I really spent a lot of time thinking about like what stage of life I would be in, or like what my life would look like when I turned 30, but I think that the last few months have felt like I've just been in a freaking washing machine, just like churning. It's been a difficult few months since I got home from Sweden. I've had a really hard time finding my footing in San Francisco, and I've had a really hard time like having clarity as to what it is that I want to do next. So I've just been kind of stuck in this like muck cycle, which is not good. And as a part of that muck cycle, I was basically like too tired to engage in the things that would typically make me feel better, like making a new project or just like doing something of my own creative accord. And coming back from Sweden, I felt like pretty, I don't know, just like depressed, I guess, downtrodden, completely out of sorts, and like out of the sense of momentum and community and progress and direction and place that I felt like I had in Stockholm. And I think part of that was feeling like I had sort of lost my footing from a theatrical perspective. So anyway, I decided maybe a month or so ago that I would sign up for this acting class. I've never taken an acting class before, but I made a video after the day that we had the Drag King workshop in class in Sweden, and I felt like that day was like really meaningful day and kind of like filled with a lot of different feelings, and chief among those feelings was like, this is what I need to keep doing. And something about the embodiment and like building of character and stuff, I just felt like that was important for me to continue with. And so I decided to sign up for this course because it felt like it would be a way for me to engage with something that is sort of like enlivening for me without me having to have the energy within myself to like write a whole new play and put it on and all this stuff. So it's just a 1-week class. And the Chekhov method, which I had never heard of before, is based on the teachings of Michael Chekhov, who is the nephew of Anton Chekhov, the playwright. But the Chekhov method is very much based on these sorts of like archetypal gestures. It's about like imagination and like physical embodiment of certain kinds of ways of moving. So like there's like 4 ways of moving and 4 types of movement and all this stuff. I mean, we like barely, I think, scratched the surface in this class because it was literally 5 days, and also I was sick for one of those days, so I had to miss class, which was frustrating. But anyway, it was a very brief little exposure to this technique, which I hope to continue to study or sort of engage with. But I think the like number one most impactful thing that I took away from this was this kind of ability to access imagination in a way that I feel like I haven't either like engaged with in a while or thought about. And the kind of high point of the class, which we worked up to, was this like 20-minute long kind of guided meditation, hypnosis, imagination thing journey that we all took. That was just so powerful that it felt like it really opened my eyes to like the imagination and an embodied imagination, particularly as a tool. Part of the class was like building rapport within the ensemble. I think we had 8 people in the course. And so it was like learning to, we played a lot of like throwing ball games, but it was a lot of like learning to kind of tune into the physical signals of the group and like anticipate and stuff like that. And that was fine, but I felt like the really, really amazing thing was an exercise that we kind of built on gradually over the course of the course. But in the very first day, basically you stand in a circle, you kind of warm up, loosen up your body and stuff like that, and then you imagine that on the ground there's a threshold before you, and everyone envisions their own threshold. On the other side of the threshold is your most kind of like creative, energized, higher, open actor self. Like this is the self that is sort of like shimmering in golden light, like ready to play and receive. And then you step over that threshold and you feel yourself sort of like carried into the actor self, and you stand taller and your chest is more open and all these things. And it was just like incredible how immediate that physical and like physical psychological transformation was. I was having a really freaking tough week. I'd been sick. I was just not feeling good. I was like just feeling like my life is falling apart around me. And just these small practices of like embodied imagination were enough to totally shift my outlook every day that I did it. So the following day we did this exercise again, and we were instructed to kind of feel that this actor center was like this radiant orb in our chest. And you're moving around like this big studio as you're doing this. So you're moving around, just sort of like letting this change your way of moving, and like it totally changes your posture and everything. And then you feel this sort of core glowing center expand to then like kind of be without like outside of the bounds of your body, and then it's 3 times as big, and it just grows and grows and grows until it's like the size of the whole room. And then it stretches beyond the room, and then it stretches to the floors above and beyond, and then it fills the whole building, and eventually it's like your radiance and center is like you're as big as the whole city of San Francisco. And these exercises were so, the experience of imagining these things, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just sitting here and like thinking of this. In moving your body through the practice of imagining, you have the embodied experience of that really happening. And so it's like the thoughts and feelings that occur to you in being the size of a building or the size of a city are real. Like it feels like, in the same way that jogging down the street like leaves your body feeling in a particular way after that experience, moving around and doing these imaginations like actually makes your body feel a specific way. You can feel the physical change even though all you've done is walk around in circles through this room and like visualize certain things in your head. But it's an incredibly powerful tool. And I just, you know, in that exercise, when we had to envision ourselves like the size of San Francisco, I've been having all kinds of difficult feelings about the city of San Francisco and my place in it, and not wanting to be in the city and all sorts of things, feeling like it's become a really like negative place. But in kind of imagining that I, as this sort of like radiant being, encompassed the whole city, it sort of suddenly shifted for that moment my feeling of like belonging and ownership over the space again, and made me feel like this is not a scary place, this is not a negative place, like this is a place where I am being my full radiant self, and like I have ownership over all of this, and like I don't need to worry about anything that goes on in this city. Like nothing is going to hurt me because I'm as big as all of it, and like I don't need to cower away. So that was really interesting. And just one note on that, on the like imagining of your most creative self, another thing that it made me think about was like how easily these images and senses of self came up. As I mentioned, like the last several months have been pretty tough, and in these moments of difficulty where I feel like I'm not making anything and I'm just sort of like losing sight of myself and what I'm capable of and all that, it's really easy to feel like I'm somehow cut off from whatever creative impulse it was that I was like able to access the last time I wrote a play or whatever. And this exercise made me feel like being creative, it's like being like a metal detector. Like a metal detector can either be turned on or turned off. When a metal detector is turned off, it's inert. When a metal detector is turned on, it detects the metal and it goes beeping and blah, 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 and you can find coins and jewels and whatever else. But when a metal detector is turned off, it doesn't make any noise and the jewels remain hidden. But that doesn't mean that the jewels are not there. It just means that your ability to find them in the dirt or wherever is temporarily not accessible. So in visualizing my like highest actor self or my creative self or whatever, you know, I had these different, every night I would have these sort of different images of myself or visions or access points, and but it was never something that was like a fanciful future version. It was always rooted in something that had already happened, which was an encouragement that this is already possible. And I was sort of felt like I'm like reaching out to meet myself. So that was really a good reminder that like it's never gone. Just because you're sort of in this inert fallow period doesn't mean that you have lost touch with that part of yourself. It just means that it's just not it's not alerting right now. The next class, we did this sort of journey, 20-minute long. I don't even know how long it was. I'm saying 20 minutes, but I don't know, 25 minutes, maybe half an hour, I don't know. This journey where, again, it was like we started with these things that we had already accessed. So it was like, imagine the threshold, you're moving through the room, you're moving in this way where you like feel your most creative self coming to the fore. And then my teacher was sort of like speaking out these sorts of, not commands exactly, but prompts, I guess. So she said, you know, you're walking around and suddenly you see a door before you. And you go up to the door and you feel the texture of the door and you put your hand on the handle. You don't go through it. And then above the door, you see that there's some writing. And so you look at the writing and you notice that, wait a minute, your name is above this door. And then you open the door and you like sort of look back at the studio and the classroom behind you, and then you look through the door and you see this beautiful meadow before you. And so it continued like this, and we saw all these different, move through these different phases. But as she was saying the prompts, like when she says, okay, like there's a door before you, immediately you're already in this sort of like acting, exploring, feeling mode. And so it's like all the things that you do to like reach out to feel the door, put your hand on the handle, or all these things, like for me at least, they came completely naturally because I was so open to like receiving the prompt, I guess. And it was like, I mean, of course I could still see the room, but like the experience of what I envisioned was so strong and so real and so distinct that it was like there was like a layer of transparency over the room, and this whole imagined experience took place in this like half realm. And it was so beautiful too, like how the physical, like the physicality of it was so distinct. And I have a background in dance, but I haven't danced in a really long time, and it just felt like the best place for this kind of movement and grace, expressiveness to come forth. So go through these sort of like 4 different locations, I guess. So first you wander through this like a sort of what do you call that, grassy area with a tree, and you go around the tree and you see this mound covered in grasses with an entrance, and then you go through and you're exploring, and there are paintings, and it's just like, as my teacher was explaining all these things, like these images just came up completely naturally, and I was like really there. And at one point, even like, I think it was when I was exploring the mound, it reminded me so much of this dream I had several years ago, which kind of felt like a premonition dream, that like I almost began to cry. Like I got sort of like, I kind of felt like choked up and felt like tears come to my eyes, because I was just like, wow, this is so beautiful. Like I'm so in awe that I'm like in this place, because it felt real. It wasn't like, oh, I feel so in awe that I'm like pretending to be in this place. It was just like, you're there. And then we had to like go through different ways of moving. So in the mound, you like go down a set of stairs, and then you start walking through mud, and the mud like starts at your feet, and it gets a little hard to walk, and then it starts coming up and up and up and up. And like I started to also get like really like actually anxious and feeling kind of panicked as the mud is like up to your neck. And then the mud recedes, and then you find yourself at the foot of these stairs that lead into a big pool of water, and you realize that you can breathe underwater. And so you go into the water and you fully immerse yourself, and then you're floating in the water, moving with these aquatic creatures that you've never seen before, that are sort of like teaching you how to move and how to float. And it was just like so beautiful. Like the experience of doing that, it's like you're not thinking about like, oh, how does one do this? You're just sort of like letting yourself naturally move. And then after that, you like exit the pool, and also there was music kind of like timed to all of this, so it was like, so you could just feel like when we were like walking into the initial grove of grass, this music started to play that was like very cinematic, and it just like totally wakes you up to this completely other level of sensation. So you exit the water, and then you stand on this cliff edge overlooking a forest, and there are these big strong gusts of wind, and you start to think like, I think maybe in this world I can fly. And so you take like a running leap off the cliff, and then you're soaring over this forest, soaring, flying. And then after a while, you start to fall through the trees, and you're like grasping. And then you land on a mossy bed, like in a bed of moss in the forest. And then you sort of get your bearings, and then you look off in the distance, and you see in the distance there's like some light emitting from a tree, and you go closer to investigate, and it looks like the tree is on fire. And then you go even closer, and you realize that the tree is actually covered with all of these like little beetles that are emitting light, and you sort of like curiously reach your hand out to the beetles, and the beetles crawl onto you and cover your whole body. And as they do, it's like warm, and you're filled with this power, and you are a source of light in this clearing. And so you're kind of like radiating like a beacon of light. And then you realize that somehow it's your duty to like go to every tree and every plant and let some of these beetles off of you and onto the trees and the plants. And so you go around the whole grove, kind of like giving your light to everything else, and illuminating the whole thing. And then you know, go back to the original place where these bugs came from, and you take all the bugs off of you, and you walk through this grove, and then you go back on this path in which you sort of like revisit every landmark from the various places that we went through. And then finally you arrive back at the door, and you see the door, and then you look back. And I mean, I don't know if everybody did this, but I definitely was like looking back over my shoulder, like, I don't want to leave this place. Then you confront what's in front of you, and you kind of say goodbye to everything that you experienced in this realm, and then exit back, and you're back in the classroom. And it was just like, you can probably even tell in the way that I'm describing it and the way that I'm moving, that it was like such a visceral, real, embodied experience. And it was just, it really felt like a dream, where things sort of just like come upon you, and you have these different experiences that are maybe like don't adhere to the laws of physics as we experience them, or the limitations of our human bodies, but it's like so real and just sort of instinctive, where you just know how to engage with all of these different things. But yeah, it was so real, and the experience of it was so like lives in the flesh, like it was so embodied, and somehow like so, for me, like so cherished, because it was made up of all of these different images. It was like all sorts of sort of images and types of places and things that I've like seen before, but perfectly encapsulated into my own realm of something. And it was just like to be able to walk into this place and feel like you can explore it and like touch and feel all these feelings of anxiety, of curiosity, of, you know, uncertainty, wonder, freedom, falling, all of these things was like amazing. And right afterwards we had a break, and I went out and went to the bathroom to like just put some water on my hands to kind of come back to the here and now. And I was just like astounded by the power of imagination. Like the fact that I spent who knows how long, 20-25 minutes, literally just walking around basically in circles in like a big dance studio, and yet had this totally freaking vivid experience, and like can tell you about what I saw and how it felt to be in those spaces, and like the real emotions and like real embodied experience of doing these various things. It's just like you can literally imagine anything, and like your experience of it can be real. Like in the imagining of it, that experience can kind of can be real, and I think that that's sort of what I've felt in making theater in some ways, or engaging with theater. But even just outside of theater, I think like particularly this came at such a good time, because I've been feeling so stuck in my life and just like really struggling and having a hard time. And this just felt like all the radiance, all the beauty, all the possibility. Like you can access that yourself in an empty room. You can just dream it, or I don't know, like step into it. Just, I guess what it made me feel like is that the veil between reality and imagining is so extraordinarily thin, and is made even thinner by the embodied practice of like moving through space and imagining things. I think this, if I can highlight one singular takeaway from this experience, it's how important movement is how important it is to couple movement with whatever imaginative practice you're undertaking. To just like sit in a chair and be like, I wonder what blah 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 blah. Like it's so much less powerful, because when you're moving, you're really experiencing something. And your body like remembers that experience as real as well. So I kind of just feel like whatever I want, whether it's possible or impossible, like possible or impossible doesn't even matter, but like whatever I want, I should just imagine and like move and imagine it, and that will make it real, even if it never like comes to pass in the real world. Like I could literally in this room right here now do an exercise in which I imagine that I'm in zero gravity, or that I'm like walking on the moon and like exploring all the different craters and looking out at the vastness of space and seeing Earth and just, you know, feeling the cold and all of that, the dust, like feeling the softness of the dust on your feet, all of those like embodied imaginations. It would be as if I had really done it. Of course, if I had like actually went to the moon, it would be its own different thing. But there's so much that's possible if you let yourself just move into this realm of possibility and imagining. It was just, I don't know, it felt like it really, life-changing feels like a big word to use, but it was pretty revelatory, and almost like felt like a certain practice of like spirituality or some kind of like divinity, something. You know, I think I talked about in a previous video about how writing theater is like writing reality, and when I did this play back in October, it really made me feel like I was like sticking my hand through the curtain of the universe and like able to like pull something out from the other side, or like I was sort of like revealing the inner workings of the universe, that I had somehow just created something from nothing, and I just, it was like scooping scooping destiny, not destiny, but like scooping something out from the other side of the curtain of the universe. Like it feels like, you know, in day-to-day life we're just going about our life, we're going grocery shopping, doing your job, you see your family, you cook dinner, you go to bed, you wake up again, you take the bus, whatever. It's sort of this like kind of thing. And sometimes miraculous, coincidental, strange, interesting moments happen. But like for the most part, life is sort of just like on this even-ish keel. And even when we're dealing with difficult stuff, good stuff, whatever, it like doesn't feel like it breaches that other level of like wondrousness. And I think that these imaginative practices feel like you're able to stick your arm through the barrier of the sort of quotidian blah 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 and pull out this like incredible handful of interest. Hello? Interrupted by my brother. Anyway, yeah, so this imaginative, basically the imaginative practice, the practice of theater, making something from nothing, I think, in space with people, but like particularly in this like way that is embodied or involves movement. It is like taking a handful of this like universal possibility or something and bringing it into the here and now and seeing this thing and just, I don't know, it just feels like, yeah, that this imaginative practice feels like it is like breaching the divide and opening the curtain to scoop in the like raw potentiality of making anything possible. Like it felt like when I did the play in October, it felt like, oh my gosh, like anything I want, I could do. Anything is possible. There's no, like, wish for anything and you may have it. Of course, like, that has its limitations. But with this imagination thing, I think it feels like it's part of that same, I don't want to say formula, but it feels like it's part of that same path of access where it's like, You could be moving around, like the moonwalk example. Like, I could be moving around this room and truly feel as if I'm on the moon and my body is floating and I'm like seeing the vastness of space, and I can feel that like kind of cold wash over my body and the anxiety of like looking out and like looking down at my tether and making sure that I'm still tethered to whatever I'm tethered to, and this like weightless sensation and the feeling of being so far away from the world and everything that we've built, and yet still experiencing all of this from the human perspective, and thinking of my friends or my family or my siblings back at home, and like thinking about how in memory, or because we are able to hold love and relationship inside ourselves, that like even being on the moon they wouldn't feel far anyway. But like just the practice of doing that is making something totally far-fetched be real and experienced. So I think this is very powerful, and I'm really, really glad that I took this class. I think it was I felt like every time that I went to class, it wasn't necessarily that the whole time I was like, this is the best thing ever, but it was just making me have these new little snatches of thought, and it was just stimulating enough and sort of pushed me. It just felt like a gentle push into the path, into the flow of something. So I'm really grateful for that. Anyway, that was the point of this video, basically. I just wanted to share my experience. I really do think that this has impact and like can be helpful for literally anybody. Like, you do not need to be an actor or a theater person at all. I think if you can figure out a way to incorporate this into your life, then it will be very powerful for you. It sort of felt like an auspicious opening or realignment to start what is a new decade for me. An auspicious portal, an auspicious way to sort of like look forward into the future and think about, well, not even think about, just like experience and have new tools to move forward into the future with. I'm excited to imagine certain things for myself. And I think like in imagining these things and seeing what feelings come up, it's not just good, it's not just bad. Like, you can imagine something that you really want, and I just think that you can discover subtleties to that experience that can be instructive in helping you move towards what it is that you really want. I do a lot of time thinking in my brain, as you might have gathered, but I would say that at my core, I'm a very feeling, intuitive person. Like, decisions don't stick unless I feel like intuitively that they are aligned and stuck. Like, I'm not someone who just thinks like, this is a good thing, and then I do it. I have to feel an intuitive alignment to really buy into stuff. So I think that this tool for me feels like it's something I'm already pretty in touch with how I feel about things, and it's not too challenging to get then to progress to imagining and feeling through my way through other things. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here in LA. It's been lovely to be with my family. We're all home right now, which is a rare treat, which is why I came home now. And today is Father's Day, so that's nice. We celebrated Mother's Day earlier in the week, belatedly, and yeah, it's just my sister just started a new job, which we're all very happy for her about. And I had my birthday yesterday, Father's Day today, so yeah, it's just been a nice, pretty calm, very restorative time. And I feel really, really grateful that I have a place to come home to and that my family is all here. Or not that they're all here all the time, but that we're all here right now. And that we can be with each other in this way. It's special. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for listening to this long talk, and I'll see you soon. Bye.